Hallo und herzlich willkommen zurück bei Viessmann Live.
Welcome back to Viessmann Live. I'm Dan. I work in communication Viessmann. I'm looking forward to the next point of the agenda. We talked about football very long. It was fascinating and interesting, and now we would like to talk about the globe. With me, Marc Buckley is here. He is an incredible environmental expert who knows everything. We asked him whether he can explain the correlation between environmental protection and what we do as partners and installers and Viessmann for the world. Marc. Hello, Marc. You are lawyer and member of the Expert Network. You are active in the World Economic Forum for Climate Agriculture. You are a food activist and sustainable future activist. I could go on with that list. So you are in a library. You are a library, I think, for climate, aren't you?
Definitiv. Vielen Dank.
Definitely. Thank you very much for the invitation. I'm so happy to be here. Great. And you brought a presentation with you today. And as you feel better with English, you will speak English. So we'll hear your presentation in English. I hope that's no problem for you. And tell us in German briefly what it's all about. Basically, it's about our climate, our world, how the future will go on. I'm really happy and looking forward to it. And I can start now. Okay, Marc. Thank you. So we listen to you. As always, questions come via Slido. We would be happy if there was vivid participation, but now we look forward to your presentation. Thank you, Marc. Start.
2021. So we are having temperature rising. So a lot is going on in our world. Obviously, we know that we've been hit by this pandemic. But I want us all to really be clear and understand that no matter how small the coronavirus is, that there are other looming crises and issues in our world: economic, resource, climate, obviously, biodiversity, and many, many other crises in our world. It's interesting to see, if you look on this chart on the far left, the third red little speck is the coronavirus. Right next to that is a particle of wildfire smoke. And then number 5 or 6 is a little particle of dust. And then on the far right is a human hair. Such a small thing has had a huge impact on our world. It has changed our world. And we'll never go back to the same. And the World Economic Forum is calling it the Great Reset. I want you to be aware of this size of the coronavirus and also the exponential impact it's had on our world, because there's many other things that affect us in this respect as well. Viessmann is a wonderful company, and they've set a super ambition to co-create climate for life. They're really concerned about generations, future generations of humanity, the family of Viessmann, whether it's customers, clients, installers, or employees. They are really concerned and have set a beautiful vision, understanding the role that our climate and our world plays in the big scheme of things. This is the first catalog image of our planet. It is called Earthrise. It was taken December 24th, 1968. I want to tell you a little bit about this story. This image was taken by mistake. So the Apollo 8 space shuttle was by accident turning as it was rounding the moon, and they got this glimpse. And if you were to hear the radio chatter in the Apollo 8 at that time, you would hear, "Get me some color film." And you would have heard some swear words as well, because they didn't have any color film in the camera. They only had black and white. Well, they were able to get some color film because the ship was rotating quick enough to snap off, I believe, 8 photos in color before they completely turned and lost this image. This is the first catalog image of our planet, and it really set the tone for our world. In 1968 and thereafter, our world changed perspectives on how they see our planet and our home. I want to take you on a journey that gives this overview or cosmic perspective of our world. When somebody sees our world from outer space live for the first time through satellites or photos, there's this profound change in them. And there's only been about 550 people in our world who have seen it live from outer space, a satellite or an Apollo mission or a mission that has gone into outer space to see that actually live. And there was a whole book written upon this. It's called The Overview Effect. And it was written by Frank Wright and one of the Apollo 14 missions that wrote this book about this overview effect, because when people see our planet from outer space, they get a profound change. I want you to know that our planet is protected by a thin blue atmosphere, but every single day we are dumping pollution, man-made gas, into this atmosphere that protects our planet like an open sewer. We are treating our planet like an open sewer. The energy trapped by man-made global warming is the equivalent to exploding 500,000 Hiroshima atomic bombs going off every single day, 365 days per year. This was one Hiroshima class size atomic bomb going off, and it was loud. I hope it was not too loud that you had a heart attack at home or messed your pants. But imagine that going off 500,000 times every single day, 365 times a year. I bet you by the second one, you would do something about it. You would take some action. You would try to hide. You would try to do something. The problem with greenhouse gas emissions, with pollution, with those things, most of them are not seen. We can't smell them. If any of you have been to China or Asia or India, you know what I mean, because in those places, developing countries, you can see the air pollution. I was in India, and for 3 weeks, I did not see the sun once. When I got off the airplane, I felt like it was being choked to death because the air was much different than it was in Germany. And so I want you to be aware that that's not always present in our mind, but it's very real of what we're putting in that atmosphere every day. And it's getting worse. When I started as a climate speaker, that number was at 250,000 times per day. Now it's at 500,000 times per day. This is our second catalog image of our planet, our Earth. Most environmentalists or activists show you this because they want to show you that there's no nations and borders, that we're all on the same spaceship Earth. I show it to you for two totally different reasons. I hope you're in a place where you believe and you understand that we're all on the same spaceship Earth, so we don't need to talk about that. But what we do need to talk about is I want you to connect yourself as an integral part to be able to guide our spaceship Earth in the right direction, in the right future, to be feeling that you are an integral part of our Earth, part of a symbiotic Earth. That is really the connection that I hope you will get and you will understand during my discussion with you guys today. The second reason I show you this is one that most people don't get at all. They usually don't come up with it right off the bat, but I'm going to phrase it to you in a question. How do we have this image? What does this image say to us? What does this image kind of mean? Well, I'm going to give you the answer. It means innovation. Had we not gone to the moon, using latest emerging technologies, computing power. If we had not went to the moon, to outer space, without innovation, we would not have this image. This image is sheer innovation, computing power, emerging technologies at the time to get us to outer space, to look back and take a photo of our planet. And without that innovation, without that progress, we would not have this image. I want you to know that every single day, up to the second, we have satellite image data of our planet to the second. It is the heartbeat, the pulse, the lifeblood of our planet. This is all innovation. This comes from satellite data. This comes from live. We can find out about soil moisture, precipitation. We can find out about cloud movements and ocean movements. We can find out about hurricanes. There are well over 2,000 data points. There's well over 3,000 satellites in our close orbit of our planet looking back, telling us the lifeblood, the heartbeat of our planet, of what's going on. This is all innovation. And it's tools that we can use to progress into the future. And I want you to watch this little clip that I've got for you, because we want to go on a journey of progress towards that future, a different way of looking at our planet and how we're going to get to that beautiful, resilient, desirable future that we want to live in.
Look at the world in a different way. Rethink. Change your perspective. Ask yourself, how will your business perform and survive in the future? Key players are questioning the status quo. It's brave to make a change. It takes commitment. We need to think differently and adapt to the world we live in. We are here to work with you, to reset objectives and change direction. A shift made easier collaborating with others around the world. Explore, discover, learn. Take the lead. Reinvent positive progress based on growth and resilience. Using resources differently.
We really need to change our models, and we need to think differently about our world. And what a lot of people are calling this is moonshot thinking, because it's similar to the type of thinking and the shift that we made to get to the moon. Now, the moon was just one country and a few thousand people rallied together to get us to the moon for that moonshot. There are since many other types of moonshots that are much better for all of humanity. And I want to introduce you not only to this type of thinking, but to forward innovations and moving together for planetary services and services for humanity. This is Dr. Bertrand Piccard, and this is a photo of he and I at the COP24 in Katowice, Poland, or Katowice, Poland. COP24 is the climate conference for the United Nations, the conference of the parties. And we were there, and we've been friends for a while, and we usually meet up there and at the World Economic Forum. And we always have discussions about innovations and solutions for the future and clean technologies, different types of fuels for the future. And I was having a discussion with him actually at a previous conference of the parties where I said, congratulations for being the first to fly around the world in a solar airplane, because that's what he did. He was the first man to fly around the world in a solar, fossil fuel free electric airplane, solar airplane. It's called Solar Impulse. And he's the owner of 1000 Solutions. And when I congratulated him, he said, gee, thanks, Mark. It was unbelievable. You won't imagine it. He said, Mark, have you ever ridden in a smart car, in a total electric car? And I says, yeah, matter of fact, just last week I did in Italy at H Farm. And it was kind of weird because it was totally silent. It felt like it was kind of in a sound room, and it had such get up and go. The car was just really took off and had some speed, but it was weird because I didn't even know it was on because I couldn't hear the motor running, and it was silent, but yet it was so fast. It was a neat experience. And he said, Mark, imagine that times 1,000. He said, I'm up there in Solar Impulse, and it's kind of like a hybrid glider. It's probably the more 1,000 times more efficient than the best racing or competition gliders on the market. He says, I'm up there and I'm charging the cells with the solar panels on this plane, and I'm taking a climb up to a high altitude with the propellers on. And I just get up to the elevation that I need to get, and I turn off the motors. And he says, the way Solar Impulse works, it's a glider, and we get it up as high as we can, and then we take this gradual glide down, just as long, as slow as we can, when we turn the engines off to let the solar cells recharge. And he said, I was in this glide, no motors on, it was totally silent. I'd done all my checks, and then it was just dead silent. And I looked off to the left onto the wings of the solar panels. I saw the solar cells, and I looked back at my cockpit with all this instrumentation, and I'm sitting on a toilet wearing kind of a spacesuit. I looked back off to the right at the solar panels on the wings on the right, and I said to myself internally in my mind, I said, I'm a rocket man. I'm a spaceman. I'm from the future. And he says, it was just surreal. And I was just in this moment, and it was quiet. And then about another 10 minutes went by in this silence, and it was beautiful. And he looked around again, and he said, you know what, Mark? I came to the realization solar panels have existed for a long time. Airplanes have existed for a long time. All these materials in this instrumentation has existed for a long time. I'm just the first to put it all together and to make it work, to be a pioneer and go through and make it work. I want to tell you, Mark, when I told people I wanted to have a solar airplane that could fly around the world without any fuels, people thought I were crazy. I went to airplane manufacturers who manufactured wings, and I said, how can I get solar panels in every inch of my wings along the spine of my plane, of my glider? And they said, it's impossible. It can't be done. We don't know how. And he said, I was almost ready to give up. And I spoke to a shipbuilder, and I said, I'm having this hard time. I can't figure out a way to get these solar panels and keep my glider light into the wings and into my plane so that I can make it glide and not have to use fuel. And the shipbuilder says, you know what? I build sails on ships all the time. I think there's a way we can do it. I'll do it for you. And that pioneer and him were able to make it work. I want to let you listen to a little video between him, Bertrand Piccard, and Ban Ki-moon on the day of the signing of the Paris Agreement, the day that they signed the Paris Agreement and agreed on the Sustainable Development Goals.
Hello, Solar Pulse. Hello, Captain Piccard. Where are you now flying?
I speak to you from the cockpit of Solar Impulse in the middle of the Pacific, flying on solar power, only, no fuel. Mr. Secretary General, what you are doing today in New York, signing the Paris Climate Agreement, is more than protecting the environment. It is the launch of the clean technology revolution. But there is so much resistance everywhere. So be pioneers, be adventurers, be explorers of the solutions of today. This is how we can make a better world. Don't let the resistance take over, because we have the solutions. And if an airplane can come, like Solar Impulse, can fly day and night without fuel, the world, of course, can be much cleaner.
I am inspired by your pioneering spirit, and while you are making history, we have also made the history today. More than 175 countries signed the climate change agreement, and thank you for your leadership and inspiration. And I thank you very much. All the best to you. Bon voyage.
Thank you very much.
This is an amazing day. I want you to know not only was this day a historical precedence, it is unheard of in human history. It's never happened before that it was more than 175 countries. It was 192 countries came together for the first time ever and made the world's first global moonshot. They agreed on a roadmap, a plan of action to get us safely to December 2030. And it's called the Paris Agreement and the Sustainable Development Goals, which came a few months before on September 24th in 2015. I want you to know that most people don't understand this is a historical precedence. If you know anything about politicians, about countries, about delegates, it's hard enough for two countries to decide where they're going to go to lunch, let alone 192 countries of our world decide on a roadmap, a plan of action to get all of humanity to a better situation by December 2030, where we don't have as many problems with our climate, our environment, with health issues, and with things that we're experiencing now with COVID. And these sustainable development goals were developed and spearheaded by Ban Ki-moon and these countries to come together over years of hard work to develop how we could bring them together. And so I like to tease and say, who has a better Ban Ki-moon shot than this? This is Ban Ki-moon and I in Songdo, Korea in 2019. The way we were presented with the Sustainable Development Goals is something I have to apologize to you about, because the way they were presented to us was very linear and lateral, laid out from 1 to 17. And if you're lucky enough to have ever heard about them, the way that you heard about them or the way they were presented was exactly like this, very linear and lateral, laid out from 1 to 17. I'll tell people I'm a sustainable development goal advocate, and if they know about it, they're like, oh, I like number 1, it's red, my favorite color. That's the one I'm going to be working on, no poverty. And I always say, hey, that's great. I really appreciate it. And I'm glad you know about them. But did you know it is virtually impossible to work on one sustainable development goal and not touch on all the other ones, because they're tied together as a system integrally. So let's take, for example, if you were to try to work on number 1, red, no poverty, you would automatically touch on number 2, zero hunger. You would touch on number 3, good health and well-being. You would touch on number 6, clean water and sanitation. You would touch on number 9, industry, innovation, and infrastructure. You would touch on life below water, life on land, and climate action, and many others, because they all tie together as a system to solve our global grand challenges, our problems. And they're tied together with monies and many, many other things that are needed in order to reach that. And one important part to reach that is the built environment. That means renovations, restorations, and upgrades and efficiency in the way our climate is done. Not just cooling, not just heating, not just air purification, but in everything in that industry, what kind of fuels we use and what kind of technologies and efficiencies that we use in those environments to upgrade infrastructure around the world to a better place for our planet and for humanity. The other thing is because not everybody was well aware of how to look or view or understand these goals, I wrote the Sustainable Development Goal Manifesto. And I want to read that quickly for you today, because I want you to kind of envision yourself, December 2030, what it would feel like to live in a world like this. And you're welcome to close your eyes and listen, but I really want you to think as I read this, how you would feel as an individual, a family man, a father, a mother, or just as an employee in a world that looked like this in the future. Imagine a world where there is no poverty and zero hunger. We have good health and well-being, quality education, and full gender equality everywhere. There is clean water and sanitation for everyone. Affordable and clean energy has created decent work and sustainable economic growth. Our prosperity is fueled by investments in resilient industry, innovation, and infrastructure, and that has reduced inequalities. We live in sustainable cities and communities, and responsible consumption and production has healed our planet. Climate action has stopped and reversed the warming of our planet, and we have flourishing life below water and abundant, diverse life on land. We enjoy peace and justice through strong institutions and have built long-term partnerships for the goals. I don't know about you, but that is really a beautiful future. That's the world that I want to live in, December 2030. And that's the world I want my children, my grandchildren, and I want you to live in, because it'll be one that has breathable air, one that has good jobs, one that does not harm our planet or other human beings. The real way that we need to look at the Sustainable Development Goals is like this image that you see on the screen. As a pie, a cake, an azote, so to say, with the bottom layer being our biosphere. Anything that we produce, whether it's food or furnaces or air conditioners or cars or computers, comes from the resources on that biosphere layer. That biosphere layer is 4 Sustainable Development Goals. If we don't have the resources to produce those products, we can never reach the next levels of society and economy and partnership for the goals. So it's really important that we protect our biosphere and where we get our resources for the long-term sustainable protection of our business, of our families, and future generations to come. You might be familiar because it might look like this pyramid, Maslow's hierarchy of needs. If you see the bottom 2 layers of Maslow's pyramids as breathing, food, water, the next safety layer, security of body, employment, resources, protection of health and property, and mortality of family. All those are for the physiological needs of human beings. And just like that, same thing with the Sustainable Development Goals. They're not for countries, they're not for corporations, they're not for cities. They're for each and every one of us to give us and provide us with a better future. And you guys play the most vital role in making sure that we transition to a better future with less waste, less bad fossil fuels or energy sources, and less ways of harming our environment. I want to give you one last innovative example. We've kind of had this space theme, and I tell you, I don't really have a desire to go to space, but what I like about space is that the innovations and the resiliency needed to operate and function in space is a closed system that feedback loops occur much faster in space and let you know if it's a resilient thing long-term or if you've created something bad or you're using the wrong type of fuel or materials that will come back and could kill you, could damage your mission to go to the moon or Mars or wherever it is. This is Buzz Aldrin. He landed the first Apollo mission on the moon and was a wonderful guy, still around. And this is right before he jumped on on the mission and took a photo. But I pictured it next to something else. I pictured it next to a customs declaration. And This is when he picked up moon rock on the moon and brought it back. When he got back, he had to fill out a handwritten, typed piece of paper for moon rock to declare that on customs. And this next slide is his travel voucher. So in order to be paid, he was filling out a travel voucher that was handwritten, hand-typed, hand-signed in order to be paid to go to the moon. I want you to think about that for just 1 second. Buzz Aldrin used emerging technologies, the latest computing power, the latest innovations to get the moon, pee in his spacesuit, eat in space, to make it safely back, to get moon rock and make it safely back to the Earth. And then he has to fill out a piece of paper, handwrite and sign it. You tell me if those two worlds are working together. One of them is antiquated and analog, very inefficient and resource intensive, compared to the one where we need to be. I want you to shift your mindset. I want you to think innovative. I want you to think like Viessmann. I want you to think like where we need to be in the future with the manifesto I read you. The restorative, regenerative economy comes down to this. We need to imagine a prosperous commercial culture that is so intelligently designed and constructed that it mirrors nature in every step, a symbiosis of company, customers, and ecology. This was written by Paul Hawken in 1993. Paul Hawken wrote the pinnacle book. It's called The Bible of Drawing Down Our Environmental Problems. The book's called The Drawdown. It gives 100 plus ways to draw down and get our planet in the safe operating spaces that we need to be. And he is a pinnacle man on what he's done over the years. And I want you to know that Viessmann is an organization, a company that has 104-year DNA, generational DNA. Not only Max and his father are pinnacle leaders in the shift, they care about you as installers, you as builders, you as architects. They're customers, and they care about the future of humanity. Just in 2021, if any of you listened to Mac's opening speech as part of this week-long expo and week-long discussions, Viessmann has had 100 new innovations in 2021 alone. 100, that's unbelievable. And there's a market for Viessmann and those products that they offer that covers 87% of the market out there that is unrenovated, that's living on antiquated, the Mittelalter, so to say, the dark ages of technologies. They're using kerosene and Bunsen burners, so to say, to heat and get their homes up to speed, where they could get much more efficiencies and use maximum efficiency to make us into that green energy readiness and transformation where we need to be. The other thing is that's so important is not only do they have energy storage and management and veto guides and livabilities, they're constantly thinking about things and ways to protect the environment. So I want you to know that you are all the builders of our future. And I want you to ask yourself the question, what type of a world are you trying to make, build, or create, or even install fabulous products like from Viessmann that will push our future closer to that December 2030 that we need to be in to heal our planet, to draw down carbon, to create a better living environment, because this year has been the pinnacle year for all of us, how a tiny little virus can affect our entire world and what an impact that has. Whether you think you can do it or not, I know that those tiny little positive actions with the right innovations and technology can really move us on the right side of history to get us to where we need to be to create that Green Revolution, the new Green Deal, the new model of achieving the Paris Agreement to get us there. As I close, I just want to give you one last kind of a caveat of understanding. This is the 2019 Sustainable Development Goal dashboard for Denmark. There's Germany. There's all these, and it shows how many of the SDGs that country has achieved in green and the ones that they haven't achieved in orange, yellow, or red. Here's another one for 2020. And you can see, Denmark is 2 out of 17, Germany 0 out of 17 on the achievement of the goals. But I want you to know, and this goes back to the first image of our planet that I showed you, I'm not trying to purposely trick you, but the reason I show you this is it doesn't matter if Germany, Denmark, Norway, or Sweden had all 17 out of 17 in green. And that's why I've showed the image, the image on the right. I'm sorry, I didn't progress my slides. That's why I'm showing the image on the right. And that is because it really absolutely does not matter if 1 or 2 or 3 countries get all green out of 17, because that image of our Earth right there, we're all on the same planet Earth, and we all need to do it because we're all breathing the same air, we're all drinking the same water, and we're all on this same spaceship Earth moving in the same direction. It's so vital that you understand that, and you have a vital part to play. And as Max Viessmann said in his opening thing, I really truly feel as part of the Viessmann family. And so I salute you all with the peace sign, because I know if we make this transition, we can really attain a wonderful, beautiful future to achieve the Sustainable Development Goals and have a better life for all of us. And it really is a lot of fun. Thank you very much.
Dankeschön, lieber Marc, für deinen Vortrag.
Thank you, dear Mark, for your presentation. I think that was a great inspiration for all of us. And let me ask you a simple question. How did you discover for yourself what is important for you and your life? You could have become a bus driver or bank employee or have done something completely different. How did you find out that activism for the environment is so important for you? That was a very slow change, I have to admit. I was one of the first 50 people who was trained as a climate speaker by the Vice President Al Gore at that time. And as you all know, he was not only Vice President and businessman, and he was truly involved in the investment of Tesla and Apple and innovation companies that really brought about great innovations for our future. And he's invested in a lot of other companies like Viessmann in the world. He knows that this means progress for us, that this will bring us into the future. But I should be honest here. This training as a climate speaker was offered to me, but I didn't react immediately. It was a transformation taking place, slowly, gradually, in the course of time. More that I learned how business can be helpful for our environment and our climate, and how we suffer and how we can make an effect. And I myself come from sixth generation German's oldest and largest biofarmer. We have 20,000 food shops all over Germany and in 12 countries in Europe. That's where I come from. And over the generations, I have seen how much this thinking of generation is important, not only for the family and for customers, for our employees and colleagues, that make us strive and go ahead. And this sustainable long-term thinking is needed if you want to do business differently. It's really about cooperation with the planet and our resources.
So it's also all about thinking beyond, thinking what else you can do, and having a normal job at the same time. I was just checking. We already have a couple of questions coming in from Slido. Paul Wittem is a question in the same direction.
advice would you give to listeners to become the clean energy pioneers of today and tomorrow?
Oh, there are so many opportunities to do that. So there's a big push right now for direct air capturing companies like Climeworks. In Austria, one of my good friends, Walter Kriesel, has a company called Neom Group, which does a lot about energy storage and ambient water harvesting. But actually in 2020, it was not only the decade of action, and then we were hit with the pandemic, but there was this big push for planetary services. There are so many people that offer planetary services that are not just direct air capture, that not are just water, sanitation, and cleaning, but all sorts of services that get us working back into the harmony of our planet. And it's a different type of business model. It's called the regenerative business model or regenerative economy. It's one that works in harmony with humanity and our planet at the same time. And there is just numerous opportunities, services out there that I just love to see. The ones that I really loved to see during the COVID was a pivot from Viessmann, where they built respirators and where they also doubled down on the air purification devices, which we so much need around the world. If we think about it, we're breathing the same air that Plato, Socrates, Gandhi, and many others in our past history breathe. It's just recirculated in our same planet. And it's not getting any cleaner or better, and it's creating health problems and many other things. So how do we live in the safe operating spaces of our planetary boundaries? What models are there that can use circular economy and this closed system thinking like we saw as used in space or to go to the moon to create solutions and innovations here on our planet? And there's really numerous ones coming about. One last caveat on that, besides Fantor from the Neom Group as an ambient water harvester, there's another one that's an old Tesla invention, Nikolai Tesla that is, where it takes particles and positively ionizes them, put them up in the air to create cloud seeding for it to rain in other areas of our world who are lacking rain. And if you can do that, that can change the GDP of a country.
Mm-hmm. Talking about contributions, here's another question, which is actually in direction to us. What more can Viessmann do to contribute together with the partners to climate protection? What would be your advice, Marc?
I have to be honest, I don't know all the tools that Viessmann offers. I know that not just 100 innovations, but there's some new updates in the way customers and installers and employees can speak with the company to say, hey, this isn't working, this isn't right. And that kind of goes back into my presentation when I was talking about Buzz Aldrin. The guy goes to the moon with the latest technology, innovation, computing power, then he comes back and fills out a paper form. I would love to see that Viessmann offers that digital transition options to make it easier for installers and clients and partners to not only install their products, but to give service and follow-up to make it easy that say, I don't want to do that because it's difficult or it's antiquated. I'm working with two different worlds or models out there. And I tend to think it's more in the positive area, but the actual installers would know the best to come back and say, hey, you can make our job easier. You can make our life easier or more automated or more trackable, and which in return benefits the customer by doing this, and that. And it's really about that transfer of technology. One thing that's important to mention in that is those organizations that shifted to an environmental social governance business model or a sustainable business model before the pandemic were in a good position, like Viessmann, to make a pivot, create respirators, air purification devices. They had social distancing. They had things in their business model and in their technologies in place that they automatically had social distancing. They had the ability for employees to work from home. They had those progresses. And so that's exactly kind of what I want to say. You need to be up to speed with your exponentially growing world. And I think Viessmann does that very well.
About the co-creation of generations, here's another question. I have the impression that the younger generation cares more about climate change than the older. Why is this, Marc?
I think as far as with what we've seen with Greta Thunberg and Louisa Neubauer or Felix Finkbeiner or any of the younger generation who've kind of gotten out there and protested and raised awareness, that we can't always say, yes, that's true. It's an integral balance. On my side, I actually hear more that parents, grandparents, those who have families are actually saying, wow, we're more concerned about our children and our children's future, and what can we do to double down and create new innovations and technologies to get them there, or to leave them better stewardships or less problems to deal and think about in the future. Instead of saying, I don't hear a lot of complaints from families or parents where they're saying, no, we don't care about the environment. This is now our time to retire. Let's get the diesel gas guzzler. Let's live high on the hog on a big carbon footprint. I actually see a lot more concern that they want to leave a good legacy for their children and that. But I do see a big, huge concern in the youth. Not a lot of solutions are there. It's a lot of activism, a lot of raising the voice and saying, why would we listen to you guys at school? Why would we listen to what you're telling us if you're not listening to it yourselves? Because you've told us this over and over. You're teaching us this in school, but you're not applying it. It's just business as usual. And so that was the initial reason for the strike from Greta Thunberg, is she said, they're not even listening to themselves, so why should I continue to learn this? They're not applying it in a thing. And in reality, as you also saw in my talk, since the 1970s, at the very least, we've had this subject in mind. And a big problem with the COVID is air pollution. And air pollution is a big carrier of the thing. It helps the spread of pandemics and viruses. And so we need to start cleaning up our planet, leaving it better than we found. And so I really don't have a good answer with you, but I would say it's pretty balanced between all humanity. And the best part is raising that awareness.
Yeah, and people already got what you said, and I can tell you they already like what you said. Very exciting and very extraordinary insights. Many thanks for this and very inspiring. Thank you very much. Marc, freut uns. Wir müssen so langsam zum Ende kommen.
That's nice. We have to come to an end very slowly because there's more on the program on Viessmann Live tonight. Like at 7:15, we can all gather at the bar. Will you join us for a drink, Marc? Yes, definitely. I'll be there. Und abschließend, finally, we have prepared a little film that shows a bit what Viessmann does in co-creation Climate for Life and how we take efforts. I propose that we have a look at this film, a crowning ending. Thank you very much for your time. Thank you for listening. Let's do something for the climate.
Peace for the family of Viessmann.
Every single move, every step, and every path, every goal, and every click, every word, every screw, and every turn, every single choice defines our common future, a future for generations to come. Within the Viessmann family, and together with each and every one of our partners, we have the privilege to shape this future. Together, we set the pace. Now every turn means gaining traction. Every screw becomes a lasting connection. Every click means to share. And every word says we care. In order order to live up to these goals, every path means taking action. And every step walked together is a step in the right direction. Because every single move has the power to unite. Together, we co-create a climate for life.